Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Battleground T20. IPL's 13th edition is off and running. We expected a cliffhanger. It wasn't really a cliffhanger in the end, but the two best teams in the history of the tournament played out an intense encounter in Abu Dhabi yesterday night. My name is Arnab. I'm your host, and I'm joined in, as usual, by my colleague, Rasesh Mandani. Rasesh, Mumbai Indians eventually perhaps losing their way in the middle, and CSK, well, you may call them the dad's army or whatever, but when it comes to performing on the pitch, none better than them.
Yeah, we should stop calling them the dad's army because they're the winning army, and they find a way to win. And, that is what we discussed the other day as well, yesterday, that, they were built as the dad's army in 18, 19. We thought, perhaps this is the year that age will catch up. But it was a, tactical battle which Dhoni won against Rohit Sharma's side. When they were 6 for 2 or something, chasing 160 odd, who would have given them chances with a lot of them rusty. But Rayudu found his way, didn't he? And him and Faf du Plessis you can't quite say rolling back the years because they're not that old, but it's just that we had this whole there was this perception that they would be probably a bit rusty, but they found their way, and then that stunning finish towards the end by Sam Curran, because a lot of us, all the Dhoni fans, are expecting him to come in. Dhoni delaying him. Mumbai Indians were obviously forced to bowl Krunal Pandya, and then Dhoni ringing in Jadeja. Jadeja didn't work, then bringing in Sam Curran, him smacking those hits. And Dhoni's awareness of knowing that Sam Curran was warmed up to the task, playing some cricket in England, and then him winning that battle. So I in fact think that if Dhoni had come in, perhaps he would have been slightly rusty in that sort of situation, 10 runs to get. But Dhoni won that battle, he won the match without coming in so bad.
Absolutely, and it doesn't really need. He doesn't really need a certification from a young player. But then in the post-match press conference, Sam Curran did mention that Dhoni is a genius. So it is these small battles, these small factors which come into play when MS Dhoni is leading his side, knowing the fact that he might struggle a little bit because he's not played quality cricket in a long time. He took that decision of sending in Sam Curran, and wow, it worked in favor. Just to talk a little bit about Faf du Plessis, we had discussed about the chances of him dropping anchor and pretty much taking the initiative of taking the team through, whether they bat first or whether they bat second. A very composed and mature innings from Faf du Plessis. Signs of what perhaps Michael Hussey used to do for them when he used to play for this same franchise.
Yeah, and I think we by now know that Watson and Faf will have a role to play in that top order. So, Raina's going to be missing perhaps for the whole season. So in that sense, this is their answer. They haven't gone it for any sort of disruption there. They haven't promoted Jadeja. They haven't promoted someone like a Dhoni. An odd game, they might decide to do that if they're chasing 200 or something. But, they've gone in with the experience of Faf. And, in these sort of conditions, if this is the kind of trend that we see, that we'll see below par totals as opposed to the ones that we see in India, then all these experienced campaigners for CSK will come into the picture. So all of us experts who might have thought that perhaps this will be the year they may have to miss out on the playoffs, we're all now doing rethinking.
We might have to eat up some of our words, but then Lungi Ngidi, I'm really excited because that's one prediction that I made about the match, and it really worked. Didn't really have the best of starts, looked a little rusty. His countryman Quinton de Kock took him apart in the power play, but then come the death overs, Lungi Ngidi really turned it on. 3 wickets for 38 runs. What do you have to say about his performance?
Full marks to you for that, because and I thought they might go in with Shardul Thakur, because Lungi Ngidi obviously had that ability because of that 4 overseas player equation. I thought he might still go in with Shardul Thakur, but an interesting choice. Obviously, Dhoni thought there was a little bit of grass on the wicket, and that may have been a factor, the dew factor as well, that there can be a little bit of movement even if you end up bowling second. So all those factors included. Obviously, now that Ngidi is struck, he may be a regular member of this squad. Looking ahead.
Important point there, Rasesh. So if Ngidi continues to play, then Imran Tahir, their best bowler, the most successful bowler of last season, might have to sit out. Dhoni has got in Piyush Chawla. Piyush Chawla is somebody we know that from past experience. Dhoni is somebody who banks on Chawla. He played him in the 2011 World Cup also. So does this mean that Imran Tahir might not play a big part in this season?
I think Tahir will still find his place on certain wickets and depending upon the venues that they play in, because if they're playing at Sharjah, which is expected to be a flat wicket, they may not necessarily go in with the same sort of combinations. Chawla, whether they will go in with him, perhaps they might play an extra spinner and Tahir may come in. So there may be a little bit of reject. So they are, sort of these think tanks are bullheaded as far as selection choices are concerned. Even if you succeed in one game, if the next condition, the matchups are different, the playing conditions are different, they tend to change the playing combinations.
Right. A quick word on Mumbai Indians. What went wrong? I mean, they had a great start. The platform was there for them to build upon, but then no one really carried on. Surya Kumar Yadav looked sharp at number 3, but then the wickets just kept tumbling. Hardik Pandya, Krunal Pandya, Kieron Pollard works on most days, but on these wickets where you might need a little bit of grafting, do you see Mumbai Indians struggling with that middle order of power hitters?
I think they got sort of a little bit fooled by the initial start that they got. Deepak Chahar was off radar a little bit in the first couple of overs. CSK were sort of conceded a few runs, so they may have sort of overassessed the runs that they were chasing. They were probably going for a 180 plus 200 sort of a wicket, and suddenly those flurry of wickets in the middle didn't help. So I think Rohit made that point as well. Like you mentioned, they didn't graft enough, they didn't assess the conditions enough, and that was going to be one of the tricks. If you didn't get to chase, if you end up batting first, then you need to know what power score they are chasing. They perhaps try to go for too many runs.
Right. Obviously, a lot of changes need to be made as far as Mumbai Indians is concerned. CSK also will have to look at the other 2 wickets and make changes to their lineup. But a great match to get things going. We have to now move forward and look forward to the match which is coming up today. Delhi Capitals versus Kings 11 Punjab, the proverbial wooden spooners of IPL over the years. 2 teams who've never won the trophy along with Kohli's RCB. Let's not forget, but RCB have made it to the finals. KXIP have played one final. DC, the only team, the only original team from 2008, which has not made it to the final ever. But a lot of people are saying this could be their year. Perhaps the most balanced team that they have had in a long time, and Ponting playing the role of the coach. Rasesh, your first views on DC?
It's an exciting match because there are so many mini battles that we need to look at. There's so many people who got a lot of things weighing as far as aiming for a concern. Just the franchisees, for example, Delhi Capitals have got a new management, so the Jindals are keen to win. This is their last year of management as well. Then if you look at the Kings 11 Punjab, obviously chasing this elusive title. Then the Ponting versus Anil Kumble battle, opportunity for Anil Kumble. He'll never say it, but I'm sure he wants to prove to the world that he can be a good manager. So he'd be keen to pull this together. This is the first time he's sort of a head coach of a side. He's had mentorship roles with Mumbai Indians in the past. Ponting, of course, has his own stature. When Ponting is the coach, he will be leading the strategic decision making. Young captains in Shreyas, Iyer, KL Rahul, they would have their reasons to prove. This battle between Rishabh Pant and KL Rahul for the Indian gloves in the T20 squad. So there's so many reasons for us to look forward to this battle, because all of these cricketers, these teams themselves will be very motivated.
You've used the word battle several times for me to now throw to our first segment, which is called the battle. So we'll go on to the first segment, which is the battle, where we'll discuss about the 2 teams, how they stack up. 14-10 in favor of Kings.
Arnab, I lost your voice, but I think you were speaking about the battle that we are looking at.
We're talking about the battle, yeah.
Yes, I think yes, 14-10 in favor of Punjab, but like I said, that's history, that's in the past. We'll all be also keen on looking at how Dubai behaves. This is going to be the first match that will be played there, so this sort of first week will sort of set the trend as far as the sort of playing conditions we'll have. So we'll keep an eye on that. But DC versus KXIP, little to choose. Perhaps Delhi Capitals on paper looking very strong, and I think they'll want to sort of take forward the momentum that they were able to establish last year, where they finished in the playoffs.
Right. A quick question. Delhi Capitals did not have the greatest of opening combinations last time. When I mentioned that the average of coming from average contribution from openers was the second lowest for DC. Shikhar Dhawan played his part, scored more than 500 runs at the top of the order. But Prithvi Shaw struggled. He wasn't consistent enough. Do you see Prithvi Shaw again teaming up with Dhawan at the top, or do you see someone like an Ajinkya Rahane perhaps coming in to provide more consistency?
That's the trick. I don't see Ajinkya Rahane starting in the playing 11, which is quite a tragedy for someone like him who sort of moved to a franchise and then to find out that he doesn't have a place. But I think he was feeling hurt in RR and he wanted to move. But for Ponting, in fact, I think spilled the beans. I was listening to one of his media chats where he said that he look at Shikhar Dhawan and Prithvi Shaw at the top to start with. So perhaps that's the way they are going ahead. And if that is the case, then perhaps someone like a Shreyas Iyer will come in at 3, Pant at 4. So that's probably the way it start. I would take a more radical approach. I mean, I'm no expert, but I think of what I've seen, you should try and find a way of pushing Rishabh Pant up the order at some stage in the tournament from the very beginning. If not the top 2, then at number 3.
If not the top 2, then number 3. All right, we'll discuss more about Rishabh Pant and all the other batsmen who will be in action today in our next segment, which is called the batsman to watch out for. I'm sorry. Let's just discuss the trump cards first. That was a wrong throw from me. We'll discuss the trump cards, and the trump cards that you picked up, Rasesh, was KL Rahul, the man who will be captaining KXIP. Your views?
I picked up Rahul and you, I believe, picked up Rishabh Pant. I was tempted. I would have gone ahead with Pant as well because Pant excites me like no other batsman in Indian cricket. But because he is not expected to bat at the top of the order, I believe Rahul becomes a more crucial batsman for Kings XI Punjab side. He was, man in prime form. Before lockdown, he was the strike rate that he scores for India is better than the big three. Rohit, Dhawan, and Virat. The strike rate that he scores for in his IPL track record is better than Rohit, Virat, and Dhawan. And I find it baffling that the Indian T20 team does not find a place for him at the top of the order. They sort of pushed him back in the middle order. When he was given the gloves, responsibility of the gloves in a T20 match, he can very well bat at the top of the order. But Rahul was the man in prime form. We don't know how he's going to turn up after lockdown. Like that's going to be the case with every batsman. But because he's the captain here, additional responsibility, point to prove, this whole battle with Rishabh Pant, now that they sort of know that Dhoni is out of the picture. So there's a lot to look forward to, Rahul's such a delight to the eye. So I picked him as the trump card, as someone who KXIP will miss the most if he's absent from the playing 11.
My only question is that
your choice is Pant, yeah.
Right. My only question about KL Rahul, Rasesh, is that we saw him pretty much do the heavy lifting last season for KXIP. Till the time Rahul was firing, KXIP were winning. But the problem is, if he opens the batting, the chances of him going on and finishing the match reduce. You don't see him staying on 20 overs while chasing or while batting first every time. So the people around him will have to support him, and that is something which was missing last time around, and that is something where KXIP will have to pretty much pull up their socks and help KL Rahul from everywhere.
Yes, they'll have to, and that will be quite decisive as well. But a lot of these things, teams now tend to think that that's a mistake that MI used to make with Rohit, and they used to preserve him for the middle order to sort of allow him to play anchor a little bit. But they've changed their strategy as well. I'm sure Rahul's going to open. They'll probably punt on him to sort of not fail, rather than looking at the possibility of what if he doesn't work. But yes, the people at the middle will have to play anchor and play the right role around Rahul. The big choice they will have to make whether to play Gale or not, because if you don't play Gale, if you play Gale, then you take out someone like a Nicholas Pooran, who's got a same sort of skill sets and is younger in age, and Gale takes a little bit of time to get in. So, and if Gale plays, then Mayank Agarwal has to bat 3. If Gale doesn't play, then Mayank opens with Rahul. So these are tricky decisions that they will have to make. But I think these decisions Rahul will leave out to Anil Kumble, and that will sort of give us an idea of how Anil Kumble thinks about this format and how their team will go.
Right. Quickly talk about Pant now. A strike rate of more than 160, the best among all the Indian batsmen. This man, if he explodes, he can take the match anywhere. I'm like, he can win the match from anywhere. The problem, though, I feel, is that Delhi this time have a lot of other batsmen who can play that role. You've got a Shimron Hetmeyer, you've got an Alex Carey who comes down the order and belts the ball. Supposedly, if Delhi have a collapse at the top, what kind of an approach do you see a Rishabh Pant taking? Will he take more responsibility?
Well, that for he tried to do a lot when he plays for India, and when he tries to do that, it doesn't generally work. So they'll probably free him and allow him to go for it. And it will be interesting if Pant is able to sort of establish himself as one of the foremost batsmen in T20 cricket, working under Ricky Ponting as well, because he's got that sort of talent. Look, one of the things that's missing in the Indian team, and we keep looking at how this IPL can help Indian cricket in the long run, is that they got a lot of classy batsmen in the Virats and Rohits of the world, but someone like a Pant who's got the audacity of playing a reverse sweep and try and smack it out of beyond the boundary line, and sort of make room and disrupt the bowler's plan. These sort of things very few batsmen in India can do. Pant has got that sort of ability, and then he's got the range, his sort of bread and butter shot of hitting over mid wicket like Raina used to do a lot. So he's a delight to the eye, and he's such an effective impact player that he should succeed this season.
Right, disruptors and impact players are the way to go, as we've seen with English cricket and how they have come out of a hole and changed their fortunes in limited overs cricket. Moving on now to our next segment, which is the batsmen to watch out for. And in this segment, I would like to talk about an old horse, an old war horse who's come back to his home franchise last season, did really well, scored more than 500 runs. Shikhar Dhawan. Why I feel he's going to be a star campaigner for Delhi this time around, Rasesh, is because he's got that ability to graft. He can play the role which perhaps Faf du Plessis played last evening for CSK, and he can provide those consistent 30s, 40s, which lay the foundation for the power hitters that Delhi have to build on a big score. Just to give you a small stat, Dhawan had 8 scores of above 30 in the last season. So definitely here's a man who knows his job and is really consistent at it.
Yeah, we'll see how Ponting looks at this. Arnab, it's going to be very interesting because we've spoken enough about Pant and Rahul. Just focusing on Dhawan just a little bit. He perennially has this little bit of pressure, I think, of people making him aware that he doesn't strike. His strike rate isn't as good as some of the other Indian side, or some of the other fellow openers, across in IPL cricket. How he handles this is going to be interesting. Whether he's comfortable being the anchor, if or do they sort of target a 60, 70 run power score in the power play? That is going to be tricky because he has someone as fluent as Prithvi Shaw at the other end. So, in that sense, he can perhaps take a little bit easy and allow himself to get into the groove as well. And like you mentioned, they've got so many strikers in Hetmeyer, in a Rishabh Pant, and all these batsmen that they have. So he can perhaps take just a little bit easy. So he's in the right mix. But if he is also looking at the larger picture and aware that a Pant is a contender for the India opening slot, that a Rahul is a contender for an India opening slot, there's already a Rohit Sharma there. So if he's sort of conscious of that, how he approaches, so that is going to be very, very interesting.
I want to quickly touch upon one player that you mentioned a little while back. Coming off a great CPL season, Nicholas Pooran. You see him making an impact for KXIP this time around?
Yeah, it depends upon how he's going in the nets. I think they'll be looking at how he's striking the ball and whether Gale is doing a better job, because only one of the two can play. Pooran can bat, we know, and he's got age on his side. If they look at that as well, and it also depends upon what their choice of opener is. If they go in with a Mayank Agarwal, then obviously Pooran gets an opportunity. If they go in with someone like a Gale, then Pooran misses out. But yeah, Pooran's a class player, another one of those typical T20 strikers, who's so exciting to watch. And he's got that ability to keep the gloves as well.
Yeah, that's an added plus. If KL Rahul decides that because he's captaining, he would like to stay off the wicket keeping duties, so perhaps Nicholas Pooran can fill in those roles. Definitely,
lots with Rahul, but you never know.
All right, okay. So we'll see how that goes. Moving on now to the next segment, which is the bowlers to look out for. Quite a few talented bowlers there. Your pick, Rasesh, is the mystery spinner from Afghanistan, Mujibur Rahman.
Yeah, I was sort of tempted to pick your choice as well, Rabada, but I thought, and I'm just sort of preempting that Dubai will be a little bit slow, and so perhaps the spinners will have a greater role to play. But Rabada is a tough act. But I think I chose Mujib because mystery spinners work, and he's someone who's still got that mystery carom ball, which a lot of batsmen fail to deliver. And in fact, he's got a great assembly of spinners in these two squads. If you look at it, there's Mujib, Bishnoi. If he plays, he's got the ability to turn the ball both the ways. If you look at the opposing camp, there's Ashwin, who sort of keeps working. He keeps working on his range of deliveries as well. There's Lamichhane if he becomes an option. If Lamichhane doesn't play, then there's an Amit Mishra who comes in. So many skilled spinners for us to look forward to in this match.
Amit Mishra, the legend of IPL, perhaps, one of the very underrated bowlers. But Mishraji, Absolutely. Moving on now to Rabada. 25 wickets last season. Pretty much the man who did the job for Delhi with the ball. The moment he moved out and Delhi struggled in the playoffs, how big a role do you see him playing in this season?
A big role. I mean, 25 wickets is no joke, coming in and sort of creating his own space within the side. One of the most exciting young fast bowlers coming in from South Africa. Rabada versus a Gale, or a Rabada versus a Mayank Agarwal and a KL Rahul. There's going to be an exciting start to this match whenever that happens, whether they end up chasing or batting first. Rabada will have a big role to play because remember, he's got pace. He's also conscious about the fact that he needs to mix it in with his range of deliveries, the cutters and the slower balls as well. So he's aware of the skill sets that are needed in T20 cricket. That's what makes Rabada tick, that he doesn't just rely on pace like someone like a Varun Aaron for India he used to do. He does a lot. The mistake that he makes.
Right. One small thing. I was looking at the stats. How Delhi used Rabada last season mostly. It was 2-2, 2 in the power play and then 2 at the back. But keeping only 2 overs of Rabada at the back sometimes cost them because the other bowlers, the other pacer went for a lot of runs. So do you see him being used as a 1-3 sort of an option, or do you see him bowl 2 overs up front, try to pick up the wickets in power play, and then come back at the death and bowl 2 overs?
Well, depends upon the match situation whether they're defending, chasing. I'm not on top of what their bowling options are. We looked at them closely. What are the other seamers that they have? Ishant is there. Yeah, that's also going to be tricky. Whether who's the second seamer is going to be. Whether you go in with an Ishant Sharma in this format or not, or what are the other options they have. So their selection becomes very crucial. Because they obviously Rabada needs a support cast that you can't just. But I expect DC to go in with 3 spinners with the range of options that they have. So Rabada needs one seamer alongside him and perhaps 3 other spinners who will have to do the trick.
They had Kimo Paul who did a lot of work for them last season. But then we'll have to see, as you mentioned, how the selection goes and how it goes as the tournament progresses. All right, then moving on to our last segment, which is the big clash, the big battle of the match, and we agree that this is the clash which might decide the fate of this encounter. Mujibur Rahman versus Rishabh Pant in the middle overs. Whoever gets on top of the other player perhaps wins the encounter for his team. Do you think so?
Yeah, just a 2-year long career for Mujib Arnab, and he's become such a force. 16, 17 odd wickets that he had last time around. But I think it's not just the wicket that he picks; it's just the sort of tricks that he plays and the doubt that he creates in the batsman's mind. And we chose Mujib versus Pant, at least the way I see it, because Pant is someone who's good against spin. He doesn't mind using his feet quite a lot, and yet there's a dismissal. I think the last IPL where Mujib was able to fox him with the carom ball. And that's the thing. If we get that sort of a scenario, how Pant reacts to it is going to be very interesting. But when there's a batsman who's looking to take the spinner on, and there's a spinner who can create this doubt in the batsman's mind, that's just the battle that we tend to look forward to. So again, this matchup may not happen like the other matchup that I predicted, never happened. But that depends upon the match situation. But if this situation comes on, this should be the moment to look forward to.
Pretty much, we given the nature of T20, we can't really get everything right. But then our job is to build up some anticipation for the match, and we're just trying to do that. Time for predictions, Rasesh. Your pick. I'm going to go for DC. I'm making it very clear to anyone who's watching. I am a Delhi fan,
sitting in Delhi.
So not just because of that. I'm a Bengali, so I could support KKR.
Blue as well.
I get this. Wearing blue as well. A little bit of green, but So I'm supporting DC. I just hope that this is their year finally. But you're wearing red, so is it KXIP for you then?
No, there's just a bluff. I'll go with Delhi as well. I'll go with Delhi because I think on paper they look stronger. Kings 11 Punjab can potentially do equally well, but they need to answer a few questions. I'm not sure, so I'll take the safe route. On paper, DC looks stronger.
All right. Fine, then we come to the close of this show. Keep following us every day. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. There's a podcast as well of Battleground T20, which you can find on HT Smartcast. And apart from that, all the news that you want, you'll get on HindustanTimes.com. Go to our IPL section for all the news. And of course, read our newspaper and e-papers for in-depth coverage. Rasesh, thank you very much for joining in again. And we'll catch up tomorrow and discuss about the matches that are coming up.